Hey, it's Don. Hopefully we are coming through live. We've had today. We've had some microphone issues today, so please bear with us while I get everything set up. Hey, we got somebody today. Okay, give me just a minute here, folks. Can everybody hear? Can you hear me yet? Canuck Gal, and I got Resell Rockefeller. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, I've got a Yeti over here, but for some reason YouTube will not activate it. It does not show up on my options. So hopefully we are coming through sound wise okay. Give me just a second here while I hop to a different PC. I've got several open right now just in case we had other questions. My wife might be in here in a little while too. So let's see here. Let me get out of here. Um, Today, again, it's my first live broadcast today. So I've got some haul material here too that I just happened to go out today too. And I have some questions from some folks already. So since we do have a few people here, I may not be up on hollering out everybody's names correctly, but we've got Treasure Expert, Magaroni May, The Bubbles King, Treasure Experts, Yin's Flips, Thomas Gardner. Is everything good until canceled? Most everything I have is good till canceled. We do have a couple that we are running about 100 auctions at a 30-day cycle, and I'm going to do that for 2 months just to see any difference in good till canceled. In the past, we've done that before where we've ran 100 good till canceled and 100 30-day, and then we manually relist them. And there wasn't any difference in what we sell. It may be different if you're doing clothing or something along that line, but for the most part, I didn't see any difference. And we did that for several months, religiously. We just kept them running and kept them running, and I didn't see any difference. I've heard other people say there's this difference, that difference, but have they actually checked it out and actually tested it, literally one type of listing against another one to actually show that that actually works. And I've done it. So I can say as of right now, in the past, there was no difference. Again, they've changed the logarithms. So at this point, we are waiting to see. I'll know in like another 32 days. We've already ran it for 28. And we like to do it for at least 2 months to try and give us a good idea on the relisting. So, and we do 30-day listings on some of the new items we list, especially records. And those would be items that we're going to switch over from cross promote. Let me adjust this just a hair. That will cross promote from eBay to Amazon and then over to Discogs. If, like, let's say it's a record. Records are what we mostly cross promote the most of, because there's three main sources to sell a record on. You've got eBay, Discogs, and then you can also sell on Amazon. Amazon, you have to get approval for. I would not sell the vintage vinyl in anywhere else other than collectible vinyl. It might take you a little bit to get into the collectible section. When I applied and finally got in after a month or so of going back and forth with them, it took me like 2 straight weeks of sending emails, and I bugged them. I sent emails constantly, and I asked for hints. I was, irritated, and I let them know, the frustration of the process. And one of the guys actually told me from Amazon, one of the responses was that you could alter your forms to match what you think we're looking for. So basically, he told me that I just didn't have the forms filled out the way they're looking for. So anyway, it's a long process to get into collectibles, but it's well worth it. We sell a lot more 78s on Amazon than I do actually on eBay, believe it or not. But that's with that. I had a couple other questions before I go on to anybody else here. I see Resell Rockefeller. He does testing too. Hello, Pedlin Profits. Steve T. Kreider, Sublime 90, Thrifting 24/7. Nancy Messina. I think I've named everybody. Yeah, I'm glad to be live too. I do have a Yeti sitting over here, but for whatever reason, the software just wasn't acting right today. We had an update from Windows, so that could have something to do with it. I did some tests on, I did some private live streams, and it just didn't come out very well today. But they came out fine days ago, so who knows? I've got another, I believe it's OSB, I think software I've already set up, but the streaming abilities has been blocked somewhere in my firewall. So I've just got to adjust that. And next week when we go live, it'll be a little better, and I'll have better high D, I would imagine. So let's see, Tiffany T, how you doing? Um, Good to see that it sounds good. This is literally just off a laptop, Realtek. I literally, as I said in some of my other videos, I did buy the Yeti. And we have a couple other mics, some professional ones too, but they're more like a boom mic that goes on our Nikon 5300. It's a whole setup that we do. I've got extra screen add to our camera, so that's what we do with that. But I'm going to hit a few questions real quick first because I have some that have been waiting here. I've got a Facebook group, if you're unaware. It's under the Auction Professor as well, too. I'm going to share some things there that I may not have time to do videos for. So if you're interested in seeing some things, and I'll try to actually do like a paragraph or two on history and maybe where you can find some of the items that I post onto Facebook. But again, Facebook, it's the Auction Professor. But one of the questions I had was, how do I pay my employees, and what do I pay them by the hour, by the listing? It would be pretty hard to pay an employee by the listing and to follow the law because you have to have a set, I believe it's 8.35 minimum wage. And if you're paying them by the listing, there's a chance that they would not earn enough to make minimum wage. So I would never, ever pay somebody by the listing in my book. And there's no way to judge on, your quickness versus their quickness. So for me, we have an hourly pay rate, 9, $10 an hour, depending on, how long they've been with us. And literally, I have an accountant. There's one here in town, and I actually had to just change something with them. There's a Ohio Business Gateway in our state that you can adjust, and you can log in, and you can have accountants do some of the work for you. And they've just set it all up great now. It's all quick access, and that's where we file our sales tax through too. And I've got it all tied together. The accountants handle everything for the payroll. All I do is fill out the main paperwork. I pay them by the hour. They take the photos. All the photos pretty much are taken by employees. I take some. I took some today, but as general rule, I don't do photos. And they do not do any of the actual listing page setups. When somebody lists for us, one of my employees, and I'm going to show you them this week. I've got a couple coming in, and we're just going to do a couple videos with some of the employees, so you can see that I'm not just talking about people that aren't actually here. But they'll go ahead and take photos, and like in one day they'll do, one employee can do 2,000 photos in a day in a decent sized shift, counting for breaks and all. And they'll actually list the items. What they'll do is they'll do like the same item. So one day an employee will do, a couple hundred postcards. That's all he's going to list. The form is already set up. All they have to do is hit sell similar. They change part of the listing title and put the title in. They up the photos and adjust the photos, and all they're putting in is a price and then maybe a condition statement. And I never use the bottom blocks for the main description of the item for condition. That way, all they have to do is pop in the little description section for the actual condition. That's all they're doing. So it's a real quick process. And one of my employees in an hour can easily do, say, 24 postcards if they're rushing on it in an hour. So that just kind of gives you an idea on how we do it. I don't know what the laws are in your state and how it works. The only thing you need to do to have an employees in the state of Ohio is to have basically a business license. You can be a sole proprietor in this state and have employees. You can have as many employees pretty much as you want up to a certain threshold. I don't think I would ever hit it. I think it's like 25 or 50. Right now, there's 8 people technically on payroll here. So that's kind of how we do it with payroll. And again, watch out in your state if you're going to let them do it by listing, because if they judge their hours and they're not making enough to make and earn minimum wage, you pay the difference. And I'll give you just a real quick example in a restaurant. I know everybody knows that servers get less than minimum wage, and the rest is balanced on tips. When I worked in a restaurant, I was a general manager in restaurants. We paid the servers $2.13 an hour. But if they did not make enough tips, we have to compensate them for the rest of the minimum wage. So don't get yourself in trouble. Just pay them a flat minimum wage. I know people use the virtual assistants. I would never do that in my book because it's out of hand. It's out of your control. Someone you have no idea who they are has access to your logins. So I would never do that. I'm a safety nut. So I've got firewalls everywhere. And we're actually on a subnet in my house on another firewall. If that gives you an idea. Let's see what's going on here. Uh, I'm sure there's one, looks like it's, I don't know if you're serious, but used panties you cannot sell, nothing that has been worn. That is a violation, and that could get you kicked off or at least one big mark. So Suka fangirl for life. So just keep that in mind. I know you see them on there. I see shoes and sandals and slippers. Any of those being sold in that nature, you could get yourself into trouble. There's some legalities and whys in those type of materials too. It may actually be against the law in the city you're in. So please keep that in mind. I do see that they do sell. So, I know that may seem like a crazy thing, but stuff like that sells, and they do sell for high dollars. So, it just depends. Just you're running a risk on stuff like that. Joke or not joke, that kind of item does sell. So yes, I do have everyone on payroll. I have everything done in an Excel spreadsheet that I set up myself too, and I can track it by the minute just like any other system. I pop in the hours. They actually keep track on their own as well too, so that at the end of the month it's matched up. You can print off a sheet of paper and have them sign off on it every day. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Just track it all correctly. The only other aspect that you need in this state was to have a poster for workman's comp. And yes, I do have workman's comp. I have every single thing that any normal business has. It's the law. And it averages out. If I pay $9 an hour in pay, an extra dollar goes to cover the workman's comp, the insurance, and all that other aspect of it. That's it. And then for my accounting services, I'm cheap. I hunt down everything as cheap as you can. They do not send out checks. I usually pay in cash or a check out of my own, our own business accounts. That way I'm not paying for the extra service for the accountant. And you can actually, for the service fee that I pay, get 10 employees covered for that rate. So I've still got two more to go, and then if I go two more employees, I'm actually going to have to up my fee for my accountant. And I have two separate accountants now. So I've got one accountant that just does my end of year taxes. I do everything else up into and including the final paperwork and all the forms. All I do is turn them over to an accountant at the end of the year. And then on the other accountant that we have does payroll. And the reason I have two accountants because one accountant wouldn't match the price of the other one, and it was a good $60 difference. And that's over $600 a year, $720 a year. So I'm cheap, and I don't care if I have to go to two separate accountants to save that kind of money. That's a lump sum. That's half of one of my, or well, that's actually all of my anchor store fees right there. If I'm blowing that for 1 month, so I'm cheap. I'm cheap on everything I do. Um, J Tuba, why do I call it real picture postcard? It depends on who you talk to. Old timers might call it real picture postcard, real photo postcard from all what I've ever seen. I've done eBay when they first started. I was on eBay the very first year they did it. You can see it either way. It just depends on who's doing it, I guess you can say, and what part of the country you're in. In Florida, everybody calls it, at least all the people that I knew, it was real picture postcard. It just depends. You can call it whatever you want. The term that I put on all my listings is RPPC, and if I have more room, I'll put real photo actually in the description too. So it's just a minor technicality. I guess it's maybe I should correct it what I say, but I always say it. It's something I've said that way for 20 plus years probably, because literally, as I said, we've been on eBay 20 plus years. First day we first year they were on, we sold Pez on there, and that's literally how we found eBay back in the day, when we didn't even know what it was, and it was just a like nothing at the time. Sometimes you see underwear on hangers. I see them at some of the thrift stores on hangers. I don't know why you do that, but most of the ones that I go to have them in bins. If you just have three major antique malls, I'm not sure, treasure experts, what you would call an antique mall. Around here, there's some antique malls that have like 120, 140, dealers inside, and they take up like a couple football fields. So one of those has, so many different options to go through. These dealers in the antique malls, the big ones, the ones that are advertised, the ones that run the shows, they have people that come in there and they restock their booths constantly. They're in there at least once a month to get a check. That the dealers in there are, dropping stuff up at least once a month. So I would hit every single mall at least twice a month to make sure you're not missing something, if that's what your plans are. Um, sometimes the little ma and pa antique stores are just as good. We have a large area that I'll drive to, and me and the wife go out sometimes, and we'll get dinner or lunch or something, and shop while we're out. Or they'll have like a late night antique walk around where you can hit a bunch. We'll do those too. But the size of the store isn't always the issue, but the bigger the store, the better usually the picks are. You have more opportunities and more options. When you're an antique mall or store, you've got all the time in the world to sit there and look on your phone. That's the best part of what I like about going to an antique mall versus a flea market. You don't want to sit there looking, something up in front of the actual guy so he knows you're trying to resell it. I don't announce to anybody that I resell ever, unless, it's obvious that that's what I'm doing. So, you go to an antique mall, you've got more time. Time is what I like. And I don't mind leisurely walking around. I never look at booths with big stuff. I never look with booths with glassware. I look for the little tiny display cases everywhere I go. And I can walk down an aisle and go really quick and just look for the smalls. If they don't have smalls or display cases, I just keep going. So you could go in an antique mall and, be done in, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the size of the mall. Um, let's see, I don't want to miss anybody here. Diego or Diago. I am sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I've heard it both ways. I, had employees. One insisted it was Diego, and one insisted it was Diago. So anyway, how do I grade records? There are two record standards depending on the type of records that you have. 78s are totally different. 78s do not go in VG, VG plus. 78s go. The grades that I buy 78s in are like a V plus. A V plus is like a mid grade for a 78. I don't remember the actual name of the grading scale that the 78s are. I just have a copy of it. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll post in one of my next videos on the bottom a copy of my grading sheet that I actually use. It's something I typed up. It's probably word for word off of one of the books. Goldmine is the other one. But with the 78s, it's a V minus, V, V plus, E minus, E, E plus, and then I think it's like a N or something like that for mint or near mint. I never use anything other than the V or E categories for records on the 78s. And anything below a V minus wouldn't be worth much unless it's like a $2,000 or $3,000 record. Then you might still get a couple $100 out of one under V minus. Anything under V minus is going to look pretty gray. It's hard to explain it. I'm just going to post that on one of my videos for that. 45s are a little different to grade. They're a lot harder to grade. If you haven't played them, and that was one of the questions on my sheet here, if you don't know how to grade records, I would honestly recommend play testing some of them. The finger test works too. If you run your finger across a 45 and your finger sinks into a groove or a scratch on it, chances are it's going to skip. A 78, if your finger runs into a groove onto a 78, you can probably still play it. You can still play a cracked 78. You can even play a 78 that's been broken in half and taped together on the reverse side. Because I've gotten clips out of some 78s. Another aspect of doing records is some of the earlier ones are uncopyrighted. The copyright's long dead, and you can actually use some of the tracks in it now. There's a ton of stuff and information involved in doing that. I work for Disney, so I have some insider people, and I have a friend who works for Fox Animation, the cartoon in Phoenix, and he does a lot of the programming for there. So I have a little bit of an inside information on what legality wise you can do on some of the copyrights. So there's other things you can do with records, but back to the grading. I'll post a page on there, a Word document where you can kind of see. But there's two grading standards, so it just depends on what you're listing. The true people who are into 78s you're gonna see an E minus or something like that, or a V plus, V minus, or a V. If you don't see that on a listing for a 78, most people kind of stray away from there. At least the true, honest, hard-headed 78 collectors. That's the standard they are looking for. And I'm dead on my 78s. Once in a blue moon, I'll mess up on a 45 because I didn't look at the secondary side very well. Like on a 45 or an LP, when you're grading it, you can hold them up to a light and literally look at them at a light and look down it as the light beams on it. Fluorescents work the best for something like that. And on to records too. One of the other questions is, what do I do to clean records? I have a record cleaner, but I sell, mega quantities of records. So, I wouldn't invest $300-400 into a record cleaner unless you are doing it. I have a laser record player as well too, Laser Tech, and it actually has a laser beam that shoots under the record. And now I do very high quality definition burns of some of the records that I do for specific clients that we have. So that's another business side that we do. Um, and the only way to do and get good quality record tracks and rips from a 78 that's bad is to turn the angle of the laser beam to the side, and then you record off the side of the track instead of the main center groove that's gouged or damaged. So, but cleaning a record, if you don't have a record cleaner, I use a soapy dish soap only, something really light, soapy washcloth, and I very, very gently wipe it after I've wrung that washcloth out as much as I can. And then I take the softest towel and then I dry it real quick right after it happens. If it's a paper label, do not touch the label. Some of the labels, some of the earlier labels, you can carefully wipe the label. 78s are much easier to clean. They're probably the best and easiest you can clean on your own at home with the soapy washcloth. That works the best, honestly. It's probably even better to clean a 78, in my opinion, by hand than it is to put it in a record cleaner. So that's just with that. And you have to have fluid and things like that for a record cleaner. So it's not something that, it has no maintenance involved to. It's something you got to keep up to. So let's see here. Let's go back to some questions here. Yeah, eBay is glitchy today. Yeah, I've had a lot of glitches on eBay today. It kept failing out when I was trying to load another page. I open multiple windows every day when I'm doing eBay, especially if I'm researching. I have a couple pages opened and a third one with the live page that I'm actually looking at. Uh, there's Treasure Expert. Okay. 200 dealers. If you've got that many dealers, you've got people bringing stuff in there every single day of the week. I guarantee it. So I would go in there a couple times a week. It depends on where your other sources are. The best sources you can find, besides like a antique mall, are the big flea markets that run like once a week, just one day. The ones that are just set up for a few hours in the morning and then they're gone. Those people usually are old timers and they don't do a lot of internet. A secondary after that would be local live auctions, the ones that do not do the internet. The ones that do the internet draw too many people in and it really hurts your chances of getting cheaper prices. So for us, we only try to do local live auctions if I even go to live auctions. Most of the time I have pickers that are out there and they'll give me a call if they pick up something. They look for, they probably got 10 other people they buy stuff for, not just me, of course. I don't think I have anybody that just buys stuff for me, but they have, like, I buy records from pretty much all of them. And I'm the one who gets the first dibs on the records and then, postcards and things like that. Other people get the pottery. There's one guy, I'll never be able to touch tools with any of these guys because the tool guys are like, they've got the set contract basically in with these people. A lot of people are having glitches. 5,000 postcards listed. I only sell an average a couple a day. Um, Postcard wise, I sell probably on average maybe 10 average a day right this minute. In season, we could sell 10, 15, 20. I don't really worry about the quantity sold of postcards. I worry about the dollar amount. If I'm selling, 10 postcards, only a week, but each one of those postcards is going for $100, I'm making $1,000 in postcards. So I don't ever worry about the quantity of items up. And let me answer one more quick question because this kind of touches on that a little bit. Somebody asked why I have two anchor stores. And the biggest reason is that it's a money saver. So, you get so many listings for free in the first 10,000, and that's why I do it. It brings down your cost at least a penny or so per listing. When, anything over 10,000, we pay more for. So that's why I have two anchor stores. And I don't worry with having so many items up that, I have 5,000 postcards up or whatever the quantity is as of right this minute today. We've got 14,000 trade cards up right now too as well. You know, and I've got between two accounts, we've probably got, I don't know, 4,000 photos up as well too. And again, I'm not worried about the quantity of items up. I'm more worried about the dollar wise coming in. Today, one of my employees listed like 168 postcards. One of the employees listed today. I sold 4 of those already. It's 7:20ish, 7:30ish now. And I already made 127 bucks off of his shift. So, you know, that's what I worry about. I don't worry about having a ton of items up. Don't think of that philosophy. And I've talked about the vision. You've got to be looking at the big picture. It does not matter if you had 50,000 items up and you're not selling any of them. That's a different story. But we sell, you know, average a day, maybe 750 a day, 750 bucks average on a day, you know, typical day. You know, there's days, you know, last week we had a 1750 day and I had a 1400 plus day. This is just eBay. I'm not talking about Discogs or Amazon, but on eBay. So if I'm selling 1750 a day, I could really care less on, you know, having 10,000 of some item up there. It's bringing enough in. I look at this as like I am an antique mall, and all this stuff just sits there till the right person walks into my store. And if you don't have enough certain inventory, it's just not going to sell. And having so much inventory up actually helps because then we have multiple purchases. There's so many other options for multiple purchases. Me charging shipping helps to make people want to buy multiple items because then they're saving on shipping when they do. So it's all part of the whole, you know, our whole plan for selling on eBay. Let's see here. Yes, records can be very difficult to sell if you do not know how to grade them. That is definitely true. Most buyers are serious and knowledgeable on the records. If they're going to spend $10,000 on a record, which 45s, there's many that sell in the $10,000 range. We've sold, um, for those of you who know what Pop Psych is, look up Tommy and the Derbies. We've sold 3 of those, and the average price on those is $4,000 for the 45. Um, and the people who buy those are very picky on those kind of records. The way to get away from that is just to post a clip on it. Get your Dropbox out and post 30 seconds of each clip. Never post the entire clip because people will collect that clip and burn, you know, yank a copy of that clip off. So you don't want anybody getting some of these rare record clips because then they won't want to buy it as much. And even some of the people who buy the records for $2, $3, $4, $5,000, they'll make a compilation record of it as well, or they'll illegally do a bootleg copy of that and then sell the copies. That's part of the reason some of the records have issues selling because too many people now have made, you know, bogus versions of that same record. There's only a few that I can tell the difference on the fakes just because of the quality. And there's some records that are made out of styrene and not vinyl. And those are the ones that people can't fake. So I'm usually safe on the styrene ones. You can look those up yourself too. Hightower is one of the last names in the artist as a styrene one. And I can't remember the name of the record, but it's like a $900 record. Um, do I grade records one by one visually? I'll pull out if I buy a huge stack of records, if they're reasonable. As I said in some of my other videos, I'm not going to buy a bunch of records unless those records are going to net me a profit. I'll look through however many it takes me to know I'm going to make a good profit on it. I don't want to waste time. I don't want to piddle around. If you're starting off and you get a big chunk of records and they're really dirt cheap, it could be a good learning experience for you to buy those records. Worst case scenario, you dump into a lot and sell them back on eBay, or you take them into a live local auction house and you have them re-auction off what you can't sell. Those are your options. On 78s, I hate to say this, but usually if I can't sell 78, they go in a dumpster I have. Just because I'll end up seeing them again if I don't. And that's just, I hate having to run into the same records all the time because they'll just be recycled in the neighborhood. And that's one reason why I would never buy like records or something off of eBay. Too many people just put them in a lot. I put them in a lots. I've got a ton of lots of 100, 125, 150 lot 45s up right now. That's what I do with all the bulk 45s. You know, I'll throw them up there. I'll get 50 bucks out of a lot of them and they're done. Um, and back to the grading issue. Every record that goes up on eBay, I grade. Every single one. Don't miss on the grades. Grade them seriously. Take it seriously. And if you're unaware of how to grade records correctly, undergrade a hair. You know, you're going to have happy customers undergrading. You're still going to sell the records. Don't mess with any that are scrapped. Don't mess with any that are warped. And don't buy any that are cracked unless you know what you're doing, because some cracked records can sell very high. Um, how would I source if I didn't have pickers? I sourced without pickers for several years. I did just what I'm doing now, just a ton more of it. I would go to every flea market that was in the area, and there's 3 or 4 good flea markets in here. There's one they call Taco Flats. It's at an old drive-in theater. There's one at a mall out here. There's 2 that are at closed down malls. And then I would hit every antique store in town. We started off just going to antique stores, me and the wife. This is nothing that I plan on doing. I mean, I have several degrees, and I make more doing this, which is a terrible thing to say that I have a master's, and I can't get a job that makes what I make right now with my degree. Um, but without this, I would just hit all the local auctions. I would hit local auctions and at the antique stores. You have to have a sense to go into an antique store and at least know something about antiques. That's why I say research is king. It runs my business. Without research, I would be dead in the water. Spend the time in research, and I've heard some people here. One of the questions is, why would I want to start a new category? If you're not paying attention to what's going on eBay right now, clothing's getting harder and harder. Bureaus are going up. There could be a day when clothing just wouldn't be worth selling. And I've seen some of the other YouTubers here talking about the high prices at the thrift stores. I see them around here. I'm not going to pay $8 for a brand new shirt at a Goodwill store. I can go to the mall and get a brand new $8 shirt there, something that I might actually want better. So, thrift stores are going to be going away at some point. They're going to realize, and more like the Goodwills around here sell their items, the better stuff online now. And they go for higher online at Goodwill because it's a charity than you can get them for on eBay. So unless it's some killer crush deal, I don't even mess with it. I haven't been to a Goodwill since my son actually stopped. He's out for summer for college, so I haven't been to a Goodwill in 3-4 weeks now. I haven't been to a thrift store in that long, nor a garage sale. Well, I'll take that back. I did go to a garage sale to get my wife something, but there's a ton of sources. You just have to do a lot more legwork than you are right now if you don't have pickers. And I got pickers by going to these places. That's how I met these people, going to auctions, going to flea markets, going to, these once a week extravaganzas and things like that. It's the only way I met these people. I'm just taking a quick look and see what kind of Lorraine Dreams. Hello, Georgia. Been to Georgia. I stayed in Valdosta for a little while. Glen Burn, I was in as well, too. We used to go up and down 75 corridor. Yeah, there are videos on how to clean records. There's not much to it. Literally a washcloth if you're doing 78s. 45s you can scratch real easily. So just watch out on 45s if you're cleaning them. The least, the ones you can mess up the quickest and easiest again are the 45s. One little scratch can mess up a 45. Will I do a tour of my warehouse office space one day? I might. I'm in a very tight space. We've got a wood top here. These are actually shelves that I've cut down. I'm cheap. I'm not going to go and spend the money on a desk, but we're adding a big top to the desk that you see, that you can see right here, right now. And it's going to take up even more of the space in this area. There's barely enough room to get through in here right now. And that was literally, I laid it all out. I took a ruler and tape measure, and I measured out the area we have. So it's kind of hard. I can show you a little bit here. Well, you're going to end up in running into some lights, but let me see. I've got some stuff to show you too. But well, I guess it's almost impossible to show you here from where we're at now. I'll maybe get something together and here do you something on a tour. My space is, as I said, really tiny. I probably got 1,200 square feet of storage space in here in this area, and that's literally everything that we have in eBay is tied to this area. If you're gonna do a deduction for your home business, you have to have it all in the same general area, and that's literally what the IRS wants you to do. I've read the entire IRS pamphlet. I read the how to Run a Small Business Without Getting in Trouble with the IRS. That's a book title. If you ever want to, learn a little something more of just the basics, get that out. I took accounting too, so I know some of what you got to do. And I'm a nut on planning it all out. So I planned everything out to the inch. Every one of these shelves is spaced, just enough to get stuff by. Same with the ones down here. I mean, everything's spaced. Even underneath the shelves, we shove stuff underneath it. Behind them, we left a certain amount of space. I mean, it was all planned out. Every inch of this space we did. But I'll see about maybe doing a video walk around here. It's not a huge area. There's 3 cubicles. They're about the same size as what we have right here. And I don't know, maybe 20 foot square cubicles. There's 3 of those or so. Um, let's see. Let's go on to some more questions. Are there any types, Net Bizarre, are there any types of postcards you would stay away from? Don't mess with foreign postcards. Don't mess with new postcards. I had a question on one of them, some postcards from Italy. There are some postcards from Italy that will sell, but they're usually World War II military or real early 1910-ish real picture postcards. And that's all that sells mostly overseas. Some British ones do and some Canadian ones do, but the US is the market for postcards. And China, I'll take that back. China postcards as well, too. Anything else other than that, I don't mess with most all foreign ones, and I do not buy folder cards or the folder booklets almost never, unless it's some really, really bizarre, cool topic. Um, how long have I been a full-time on eBay? 5 years now. I've answered the one for Steve Kreider. We list pretty much all as good till canceled. We are running a test run, and we got like 32 days or something left on a test run to see if it's better to do 30-day and then relist. The algorithms change constantly on eBay. They're gearing it more towards Google, which is a good thing. I really don't have any complaints about eBay, even when they do have glitches. That's just life. Wherever you work, I've had worse issues everywhere else I've worked than eBay. eBay has been a dream compared to anywhere else. So um, let's see here. Sublime 90, you lead the list more. Set yourself a schedule up. People, that's your biggest problem from everybody I hear is trying to get there and actually list all these items up. Take your time and list. If you got to sit there, and write out a schedule and tie yourself to the chair, that's what you need to do. Right now, we're doing like 70 hours a week. Today, I got up at 6 this morning to go to a picker. And we're running on going at 8 o'clock right now. I have not stopped. That's what you got to do. But I can move in and out, and I can run to the store or do something or cook or go grill some chicken outside or something. So you're not confined. This is like a joy because it's all mine now. I don't give anybody anything anymore other than the federal government. We're 100% Rockefeller. Yeah, knowledge is king. Yeah, if research is all that I worry about. I'm trying to keep up. We've got a few popping in through. Sublime 90, if you're not setting aside for your taxes, you're going to get yourself in trouble. I would sit there, and if you've got to do 12-hour days, 7 days a week, that's what you're going to have to do. If you want to make this work, you need to get over the hump. And I hate to say it that way, but for us, I worked 2 straight years without taking anything off. I worked my butt off, but I'm to the mentality that I never want to work for somebody again. I had some good bosses, but the jobs just sucked. I hated working for the general public, out in the atmosphere of a retail or a restaurant establishment as a general manager, as a regional manager, as any kind of manager. I'm talking about space is money, space is money. That's why we don't sell clothing anymore. Um, what's a folder card? A folder card's the cards that open up and there's a whole bunch of like pictures attached in like one long string. Some of them are like 2 or 3 feet long. Let's see here. Is there a book to teach you about postcards? All the books that I see are out of date. They're not going to give you any accurate prices, and the prices are so fluctuating on eBay. You're better off to just research, postcards in general, or go to an antique mall and spend an hour in an antique mall and go to a booth that has postcards and just look through some of those and research the ones that you might think that are cool. Good images, a Coke sign, a real photo, a gas station, a depot, anything along that line sells. The earlier, the better. So if they're like 1898 cards, you got a better chance of them selling. If it's a small town you've never heard of, it's got a better chance on selling. Smaller the town, the better, because less of those cards are made, and there's just not enough of them to go around these days. Not doing paper goods. most of our business is paper goods. I don't deal with clothing hardly at all, and we've been almost debating on actually selling them to another eBayer. Everything we got in the clothing, I've been debating on that because it would be just a lump sum influx, and then I could get rid of a ton of space. But paper is where it's at. I'm sorry, but we make a ton of money on paper. I mean, just today I got a ton of money in paper. Yeah, I don't complain about eBay because I've worked in an industry. I worked in a restaurant where you've got drunk people going after you. I've had my windows bashed out. I've had stuff thrown in my car. I've had tires slashed. I've been struck in a restaurant. I've been robbed, 3 or 4 times, twice at gunpoint. I've seen it all. I've had employees, robbing us. I've seen a stabbing in my restaurant. When I worked at Disney, one officer from Brooklyn stabbed another officer from New York. True story. Murders happened in restaurants I've been in. I worked in a resort where people died. I've worked in places where people were struck by our employees by a moving vehicle at 35 miles an hour, and I had to deal with the situation. I hate working for the general public. You sour on it after a while. And it was long, drawn, long haul, and I'm giving most of my money to somebody else. I'm earning them a ton of money by hitting all my numbers, getting my bonuses, but they're still making the majority of my earned funds. So, um, see, I do have a Victrola. Do they sell newer types of record players that can play 78s? Yes, and Ion will play a 78 as well too. It's not great on a 78 because the needle, you can't switch between the needles. I would never play a nice record on a vintage record player, just FYI. Lots on eBay. Most lots on eBay, if you're buying a lot of stuff like that, most of the stuff I believe is from pick through because I dump them off that way. And everybody I know, if they can't sell postcards, at the end of the day, they're going to throw them into a big lot and sell them in a postcard. Even when you see like scrapbooks full of postcards, people just put those in there just to sell them on eBay. That's why you can look up empty postcard album and still find those for sale because people buy those to stuff them with postcards and make you think you're getting an estate fresh book. Don't trust most of what you see on eBay for buying these lots. And I'm just being honest with you from personal experience. And I know what I saw on eBay. There's nothing wrong with you putting postcards in an album and selling it as an album of postcards, as long as you're not stating that it's something that it's not. How much do you need to save for taxes? It just depends on how much you sell. I've got a slush fund. We've got a couple bank accounts. I got one that we just put money in for taxes, and taxes are at the end of the year when you're making the most amount of your money. So, if you can come up and make up enough difference in the last, the fourth quarter of the year, you might not have to put anything away. But it might depend on how you're filing your taxes. Are you doing them quarterly or every 6 months or at the end of the year? I would recommend if you're just getting into this, pay in advance, pay as you go. So at the end of the year, you're not going to have some huge lump sum of money due. We've always been just fine at the end of the year, again, because we do put money aside. I've got 3 business accounts, not counting a personal business account for our secondary businesses, just for eBay. I've got one for payroll, one for taxes, and one that all of our money transfers in that I use to uh, diversify the money from that point. So, bank accounts are free pretty much as long as you keep enough money in the banks. We have a good relationship with the bank we're with now. I have no issues whatsoever banking. So get yourself a couple bank accounts. Most of them will, if it's a business account, will give it to you for free. They want your business. If you're buying a bunch of postcards, no personal opinion, but if you please, I don't want anybody calling out their own sites on my feeds. I'm not going to call you out, but please don't post your information for your feeds. This is my channel. Nothing personal, but that's semi rude to do that. I don't try to do that in anybody else's channel. I don't expect you to do it on mine. So please keep your comments to just what we're talking about and not trying to advertise. Um, Buying a bunch of postcards is fine as long as they're all vintage postcards. It's a hit or miss when you're buying bunches of postcards if you're not looking through them and at least doing some sort of research. I won't buy a lot of postcards. And if it's $5 for a couple thousand, maybe, but I spend hundreds of dollars on postcards a week, every single week of the year. Um, if you're buying lots and you're trying to do research on lots, they're going to show you and of the photo, like if you're trying to buy them offline, you can make some money off buying, those kind of items offline. But for the most part, they're going to show you the best cards in the main image, and the rest are probably just fluffers that just threw some in there, trying to get rid of them. You got to just really watch out. If someone's selling postcards and you're looking at a lot to buy of postcards off of eBay, go and look at what they sell besides those. If all they're selling is postcards, just go on. Don't even look at their stuff, because they're probably selling you the trashed ones out that they can't sell. A lot of people just blow them out and just do that with them. So look at what they're selling besides that lot of postcards, if that's what you're looking at. You have a far better chance on buying a online auction from one of the auction houses. You'll do much better buying from an auction house in your local area on postcards rather than eBay. You'll make far greater return on your investment. I'm not saying you can't make money buying off eBay, but chances are it's been picked through. If they're doing eBay, they know postcards are worth something. They've looked through them. What categories gives us the highest profit margin? Paper, anything in paper. Postcards is huge. Our ROI across the board is almost 63%. We have some areas that the ROI is like 90 some odd percent, believe it or not. And they're all in the paper fields. It just depends on what you get. Restaurant management's just a terrible job, especially salaried. I've done 70 hours and I didn't get much to show for it. So we're an LLC, but we are going to go to an S corp. You can keep more of your money going as an S corp. It costs you more to file and to incorporate an S corp. It's like $1,500 versus the 5 or 6 for an LLC. Pay somebody to do it. Don't do it yourself. We were a sole proprietorship too. Paper, I do a lot of magazines. I do. Those are residual income, so they're going to sit there for a little while, magazines. But you're going to make a good ROI on your investment. Paper, what I would call would be anything paper. These are just a few things that I got just today. These are just postcards, anything like this, just paper items in general. Bookmarks can be very good too, but you want early bookmarks. I see somebody made a comment on bookmarks. I sold some celluloid bookmarks just a few months back, and I got like $90 a piece for the bookmarks. They're circa pre-1910 era bookmarks. I always look for bookmarks, and you can find bookmarks in bookstores, even vintage bookmarks that are worth some good money. And to a bookstore, they're nothing. Bookstore doesn't even think about the bookmarks, at least none of the ones that I have. There's a couple little tiny bookstores in this area that I do go to. They sell vintage books and stuff, and I pulled bookmarks out of there. And again, celluloid. They don't know the difference. They're just plastic to most people. Celluloid will look like it has like a ivory pattern built into it, like a grain. Um, let's see here. I don't want to miss anybody here. Thrifting 24/7. Yeah, clothing is a rat race and it's getting worse and worse. We did clothing for a couple years. I had the 2,000 plus articles of clothing up, and it just wasn't getting us. It was so hard to advance. The two Sabres here in Toledo, the main area that we shop in, are closed. They went out of business, and we're hit or miss with any other stores in here. I do have some honey pots thrift stores that are tinier, some better thrift stores that I do go to. There's about 6 that I do go to, not very much these days because we're in high swing and my pickers are pretty much all I have to worry about right now. So that's what I've got going. Getting away from clothing was my goal. And again, as I said, we've got um, I maybe have 400 pieces of clothing, maybe 500, because I probably got another 100 that I haven't have listed right now. And I'm really honestly thinking about Duncan. We do make some good money on clothing, but I could just as easily have sold that for half price to somebody else and let him get the rest of the profit and not have to deal with anything. I might just end up doing that. I'm not sure yet still. Bunch of extra stuff around the house. There's nothing wrong with selling stuff around the house. The first item I sold was a Star Wars 8mm film that I just bought because I thought it was cool, and I loved Star Wars until they ruined it with the new ones. But thrift stores are a good place. If you're not into antiques, you're missing out on a ton of stuff and the opportunities there. Political pamphlets can sell. Socialist newspapers do sell. Um, you're not going to find comps on most of the socialist newspapers. A lot of people stray away from those. I have a couple up right now, believe it or not, a couple pamphlets, and the Socialist Labor Party, things like that. And they're the American Socialist Labor Party. There's nothing wrong with selling that type of material. It's not an issue to me. So you put them up. Most newspapers, as long as they're 50s or 60s, you can safely put 27.50 on any of those socialist items. That's usually what I put. It may be a long term haul. You may be looking at residual income in the future, but 27.50, good till canceled, make an offer, best offer accepted. That's what I would do on any socialist newspaper item if you can't find a price on it. Let's see here. Pamphlets in general, though, sell. Brochures, we sell a ton of brochures. I sold 3 just today. Not finding postcards regularly. That goes back into the local auctions. I think it's estatesales.com. There's a couple sites that just list local auctions in every area of the country, and they list estate sales. There's one site that just does estate sales. There's another site that just does auctions, and then there's a third site that does estate sales and auctions, and you can center them in by your local area. I used to pick up, since I don't have to go so much anymore these days myself, but estate sales are the bomb for postcards usually. And most of the people are going to estate sales aren't going to stand outside all night long, or stand in the outside in the rain or in the cold for a couple hours just to wait for a little stack of postcards. So you're usually safe if you're the first group going in, if they're picking numbers, to get in and get the postcards. Um, and even people miss the postcards because most people don't mess with postcards at estate sales, other than people like me. Let's see here. I do not give out business cards. No, I do not. I do not announce that I'm a reseller for the most part to most anybody. If they ask, I'm honest with them, but I usually don't announce that information with anybody, especially if you're at a estate sale or a flea market. If the dealer is there in front of you, don't tell them you're a reseller unless you have to. Don't lie. Build a good rapport. If it's somebody that you get along with, you might breach the subject with them and say, maybe we can work out some kind of deal. And you can work out deals too with some of the auction houses occasionally and some of the estate sale companies, but for the most part around here, they're pretty much already scooped out by the long time old timers. It's .net or .com. I'm not sure which, but those both can go either way depending on which site you're talking about. Obviously, Auction Zip, yeah, that's one of the ones I use too. I try not to buy. I see somebody talking about musty items. I try not to buy musty items in general. If you do buy something that's musty, there's a good way to get rid of it, or at least lessen it to a point where it won't smell. I know some people put air freshener or the fabric sheets in there. Some people could have a allergic reaction to that, so I try to avoid doing that. But if you have something like paper items that are musty, get a whole bunch of the best coffee beans you can get, and put them inside there. You can put them in a sock if you prefer, and then put them inside of a airtight plastic bag and leave them in there for a couple days. And once that's in there, and if that doesn't get rid of it, um, you can do it a second time. But once you put it in there with the coffee beans, that usually kills the odor. And then I'll put in shaved soap inside that garbage bag, and leave it in there for another couple days after the coffee beans are gone. A whole new garbage bag, so you're not leaving any carried over odors. Usually between the coffee beans, the soap, and after the soap, if there still has an issue, leave them outside for in the sun for a day or so. Usually that'll do it. That's usually if it's mild anyway. Or if it's really bad, sometimes you can get it off with that. But again, I try not to buy anything like that. I've I had a spider bite, and I've got some medical issues because of that, and I try not to get anything with mold or anything like that, just to avoid it. So I try not to buy anything like that. I try not to buy anything that has a chance of having any infestation. I think we got bit by well, we know we got bit by a brown recluse. My wife got bit too. I was the one who took the hit, but we bought a race set that was in someone's garage, and I think the spiders came into our house from there, but we don't know at this point. Anyway, do I have health insurance? That's something you have to buy on your own too. You're not going to find it in any group package deal. Um, I have a business owner's policy though, so that does cover me if I get hurt on the job. It covers, if somebody, liable suits. It covers my stock, my inventory, my computers, my shelving, the house we live in, and the whole works. And I don't have a renter's policy because my business owner's policy covers the dwelling of my business. So I cut out the secondary insurance. If you don't have a BOP, I would recommend one, especially if you're doing high dollar business. Anybody doing drop shipping who does not have a BOP is just opening themselves up for a problem. And it drives me nuts every time I see the folks. Nothing wrong with drop shipping. I've done it here or there, but I would never make it my key business. When you drop ship someone else's product, you are liable as the person selling that product for anything that happens to that product. Pardon me for just a second here. But without a BOP, you'd be dead in the water no matter what you do. Let's say there's a lightning strike in our house and part of it burns down. I'm covered. Let's say the internet's down for, a day or two and I have no way to get online. I'm covered from loss of income even from my BOP. So get yourself a BOP and it's going to cover you for work related injuries. You'll have to have your own personal insurance if that's the case for regular insurance, but you can be covered through work related injuries. Like my wife being an employee, she's covered on workman's comp. And that was the best bet. We looked into this, at least covering most of the injuries that might happen on work or something. The employees that I have, they're covered under workman's comp too, because it's the law. I have to have workman's comp for my employees. And that's, again, all figured out through my accountant. I don't even mess with that. I don't even see the numbers anymore. They just send me a total and, I calculate, make sure everything matches and it matches what I should have. And, my end of the month matches. I only process payroll once a month because, again, I'm cheap. So my payroll is done at the end of the month and I give a cash advance every 2 weeks. And then the cash advance is just deducted from what I would pay them at the end of the month. That's just a way of being cheap and saving money. So it cuts my costs down in half by doing it that way for an accountant. So it saves me, $600 a year or whatever the case may be. Oh, let's see here. I do sell my first postcard a few months ago for 20, paid 10 cents. Yeah, postcards are a big thing. Ozone machines. We have had one in the past. There's a geez, I wish I could remember the name of it. If I can remember the name, I'll add it to another comment. But there is one that works okay. It's not going to get rid of the musty smell from paper because it's actually in the paper. There's one more drastic move you can do if it's paper. You can soak it in like a alcohol, like a strong 70% alcohol base, and usually that kills the scent. Worst case scenario, don't do it unless you have to because it can ruin the ink and the item could be ruined. You could test it a little bit and see, but that's your worst case scenario. Um, to remove photos or postcards from albums. I don't mess with the albums too much at all. I wouldn't do postcards in an album really at all because pretty much anything could ruin the finish on them. I try to buy straight. This is like these. I just buy the straight postcards. I don't mess with any of the other stuff. You got time. You buy something that's in a book that's stuck. You could end up with a book that's no good, and you just threw all your money away. The second you touch the book, you can't send it back to the to the person who you bought it from. So that's just me. I have the availability to get thousands of postcards. So as opposed to buying a book, you'd do better off buying a lot from eBay if that's your only case scenario. Just buy a big lot, one that you can see that the seller who's selling them doesn't just sell postcards. If they sell other stuff and they maybe got a few postcards, they probably listed a few postcards. They might have got bored with it and they're just trying to get rid of what they bought. That's another option as well too. So don't mess with certain things. Just you could lose money anyway. If stuff's glued down or mounted somewhere, you could literally lose money on every dime you spent on that if it's glued down the right way. I'd never steam anything. I'd never mess with any of that stuff. There's ways to do certain things. I can't give you everything. Some of the items you can iron. Some of the items you can um, use like Goo and stuff like that. But for the most part, you risk ruining the item, anything you're putting on the item. These items are old for the most part. The finish is different than what they use these days. It may not hold up. Just stuff even in water, even the steam you're using. If you're not using distilled water, you could be doing damage to the item. And steam actually is over a certain temperature, which can break down the fibers in paper. So just keep that in mind. I know people do it all the time, and I hear them do it, and I hear people talking about it. I've seen videos about it too. I don't mess with it just because it's time consuming, and for me, I want to get stuff up and get it up quick. I'd rather spend a few more bucks to buy better merchandise and not have to mess with that personally. And I'm not saying I don't, but for the most part, no, we don't mess with that. What is the cover you are using for your postcards? I'm not sure what you mean by cover. Cindy Y. I'm not sure what you're meaning. How long does it take to start selling a good income from eBay? Um, it's going to depend on what you have up. There's no specific you're going to be able to make a ton of money certain day of the week or not. It's not going to work that way. We got over the hump around 10,000 listings. And at 10,000 listings, we were doing a reasonable amount. Our take home at 10,000 listings was like after taxes was like 46,000 or somewhere in that range. But it just depends on what you have. Um, I did some picking this week, and I posted a picture in my Facebook group. I picked up some items here. One of the items is a label that books at like $2,500, and I'll show it and probably post a picture in my Facebook group. But that's a reason why I only mess with certain things because I'll hunt out these oddball items to sell better. This is something let's do this. I'll do a video on some of these labels and maybe show you a little better idea on where to get some of these things. But again, estate sales I talk about all the time. The only thing that's going to get me out to an auction or estate sale is either my guys ain't there or there's some really good stuff there that most people don't know about. You've got to do your research. Most of the estate sales that you see online have photos of what they've got for sale. Look up that stuff. If you need to have a video on some of these, I can show you some of the sites that I use and some of the research material and things that I look up. You want the ones that do smalls, of course. I have some furniture that we bought too, but for the most part, check out the photos on these auctions and these places you can get the items at. Um, Modern Marquee is the screen name that we sell most of our stuff. I'm not going to give you my other account at this point. We have two anchor stores, as I said, and I have a third store that doesn't have a ton of items on that we do try different items on because it keeps it away from our normal business if it's something oddball or something we don't want to associate with what we're doing here. My other account, which I do not share, has some items that quite a few items that we may be the only ones selling them now, and I'd like to keep it that way. And another reason to have a second store is for testing and for doing things like this. You might not want certain items tied to your store for reputation wise. I don't sell any illegitimate items, any illegal items, any graphically bad items or anything like that. So but I do sell some items that are out there. Art wise even too. We do art as well, and I've got another name that we do sign artwork under, and I also do artwork under a company name just to keep things separate. So if somebody has a problem with one part of my business, I'm not going to be tied up with all of my business. Diversify your business. Have your fingers all over the place. It's harder to kill your business if you've got too many opportunities to make money at. Um, the baseball cards, you can buy a sleeve. They're literally postcard sleeves. Usually I have some sitting here. This one time I don't have any packs sitting here, but this is just one of them. In fact, here's one. Just a second, I can show you. Off of eBay. Um, yeah, off of eBay, you can get these off. They're cheap. I buy them by the 5,000 at a time, usually. Unless there's some break deal and I can get them cheaper at 1,000, but it's usually 5,000 of these. And I don't care who sells them. I just look at the price. They're all made the same. They're all like 2 mil. I think these are 2 mil. Yeah, 2 mil. They're all 2 mil. That's what you're looking for. Look for 2 mil. And there's two different sizes of these. There's the 3.5 by 5.5 will fit in the smaller ones, and the large ones I think are like 5 by 7 sheets. And I put anything that doesn't fit in a postcard in one of these. Every piece of paper gets wrapped and taped closed in a piece of plastic, just like this. Let's see here. Chris Kudica. That's good. Press thumbs up. Thanks, Michael Whalen. Yeah, I'll give you a few more minutes. I wanted to show just a couple things. I've got a bolo here. If you're still hanging on. Record wise, there's one label that I don't care what's on the label you want to buy. And I've never had one until today. And in fact, I don't even have a record by them. I've got a CD set. So it's called Mosaic. If you don't know what Mosaic is, I know what it is. I just never been lucky enough to run across one in my life. I just don't get lucky enough. But type in Mosaic set on eBay or on PopSite especially. This is a mosaic set here. I paid $2 for this. This is a CD set. It's Oscar Peterson. Mosaic is like the best set you can ever get of anything. It's a compilation. It's usually like the entire session for one entire label. This is every record that was recorded by Oscar Peterson on the Mercury label, and it's a CD set. This thing sells for $150 for my $2 investment. In fact, this pays for everything I got for my picker, and all it is a 7 CD set. What's so special about the records and the CDs by Mosaic is that they are the best quality digitally enhanced and digitally recorded you can get. So Mosaic, anything, I don't care what it is. If it's Mosaic and it says Mosaic, it's a boxed set, you'd be a fool not to buy it. I would have probably spent $50 on this set just to get it because it is Mosaic. But Mosaic is the best. It is what you want to get for any of these. Like obviously the old ones are good too, but Mosaic is the killer for stuff like this. We've made a ton of money on records, and if I could have gotten all Mosaics, I would have been, able to retire. This is the bomb for it, but Mosaic Records. It's a set. You'll see it listed on it. I don't know if it says it on the side. It actually doesn't even say it on the side, but it's Mosaic. You can look it up. But that's just another one, and I'm just going to show you a couple other ones real quick here. I talk about records. I got another Glenn Miller in the mood today. Another quick $50. And I got a couple other ones you want to look for. Judy Garland. And I got this one today. Now, this was separately from the actual records. I had to put this thing together, but this is a $4 investment. This is the 1949 re-release of The Wizard of Oz, and this one's going to sell for like 110-ish, probably in the condition these are in. And along that same line, Judy Garland always sells. The least you'll get for a Judy Garland 78 is, as long as it's a decent song, it's like $10. But I also got this one here, and this is about the same range. It's about a $95 record set. I bought them separately, $4 into it. But this is just talking about records. In the mood, Glenn Miller. I buy it. I've gotten 3 copies since the last time I talked about Glenn Miller in the mood. 3 new copies of it. I've already sold 2 of them, and the third one I just got in today. I've already upped my my Amazon listing. I put another quantity of 1 back in it, and boom, it'll probably be sold in 2 more days. So, these are just some of the things you can do. Hourly rate for listers, yes. Pretty much hourly for everything. Otherwise, you can get yourself in trouble. Don't charge per listing because you could violate the law if they're not earning enough to pay minimum wage. You have to pay minimum wage no matter what. That's just how that shows. But I think I'm going to wrap it up here. We're probably going to go get a bite to eat out tonight. Famous Dave's, if you haven't heard of Famous Dave's, they've got some good barbecue. But there's a nice one here, and I think that's where we're going to head to today. So I'm going to run a live video from now on every Wednesday at the same time, 7 Eastern Standard Time. So if you have questions and it's something that you might, have a couple follow-up questions to, this is probably your best bet to answer them. On my Facebook page, I try to answer all questions. It may take me a day or 2 to get to them, but I try to answer all. I have no problem with you posting items and wanting prices on them. That's not a problem at all with me. So post some photos up there if you join the group. I'll accept pretty much most everybody, but go from there, and that's what we're looking for. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Again, tell your friends, subscribe, and hopefully you had a good show today with you. We're going to say goodbye for the evening. Hopefully you have a good one. Hopefully eBay does great for you today.